Welcome to the Let's Get Vulnerable podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Morgan. I'm so happy you're here for this series. This is the Attachment Style SOS series. It's 4 parts. We're going to dive into each style. Today, we'll be talking about anxious attachment. And in the episodes to come, we'll do deep dives on avoidant attachment style, disorganized attachment style, and of course, secure, where we all want to be. I'm so excited about this series because, of course, I have talked about attachment styles in the past, but we're going to do a deep dive that is talking about cultural contexts, including the dating scene in 2025, 2026. We're also going to be talking about the roots. It's so important to think about, where did these styles come from? And I'm going to talk about the nervous system in depth. So, what does your nervous system do for each style? So, like I said, for some of you, this might be a bit of a review, but I think all of you listening are going to benefit from each one of these episodes in this 4-part series because, yes, you want to understand your style, but you also want to understand the styles of others. So if I'm somebody who has anxious attachment, but I keep dating avoidantly attached people, then you're going to want to also listen to the episode on avoidant attachment. For example, I'm really excited about this. I here's what I know. When you are struggling in your dating life and you keep repeating the same patterns over and over again, you feel like you're banging your head up against the wall. You feel so frustrated. You feel like giving up. There are some of you right now that are saying, F it, I'm done. I am not going to be on the dating apps. I'm not going to try. Right. And you just are like, why would I even try if I'm just going to get the same result? When we start to fully understand, and not just on a logical level, but actually really, really deeply understand and emotionally understand as well, attachment styles. And we start to have applied attachment theory, not just, once again, not just on a logical level, not just on the level where, okay, you've saved a bunch of Instagram posts to your phone, not just like, okay, I could explain what each is, but when you actually deeply understand each style and you deeply understand your own style, and then you start understanding, oh, this is why I do what I do, and these are the patterns that I have, and these are why these patterns are maintained in my life. Everything starts to change when you have applied attachment theory understanding to your dating life. Okay. So I am doing this because I need you to know you can change your attachment style, right? Because what most people don't understand is that anxious attachment is not a personality flaw. There's not something deeply wrong with you. It's a nervous system response, okay? This is what happens when you were raised with love that was inconsistent and unpredictable. And I need you to understand that when you are dating right now and you're struggling in your dating life, it's often not even about the present experiences that you're having. Yes, the present experiences can be bringing up things, but you're usually responding to unfinished business. You're responding to the memory of past relational trauma, right? And if you're asking yourself, why am I panicking when things are going well? Why do I obsess when somebody pulls away? Why do I feel like I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop? This is not so much about your present dynamics, although the present dynamics can certainly worsen those feelings. This is rooted in your past. This is rooted in relationship experiences that caused you to go into fight or flight mode and get stuck there. And what I want you to know is this is just a hyperactivated attachment system, all right, mixed with the nervous system that is stuck in chronic threat anticipation. How many of you relate to that term? You have a nervous system that is stuck in chronic threat anticipation. when you have an anxious attachment style, right? And I'm going to help you understand why this is happening, where it is coming from, and how it's currently showing up in your dating life. We're talking about emotionally, biologically, and even culturally, and what this looks like. Because here's what I know. You didn't choose this. You were not born and then said, "Hey, I guess I'd really like to have an anxious attachment style," right? Nobody chooses to show up this way in relationships. This is the product of relational trauma, and it can be understood, it can be healed, and most importantly, you can always become securely attached. Okay, so let's get started. I want to talk about the nervous system science of anxious attachment. What is happening inside of your body? So, when your attachment system never got consistent cues of safety, and I know a lot of you are thinking about, okay, consistent cues of safety. When you never had that emotional stability, like think about the parent that you could go to when you were emotionally upset, right? If you didn't have consistent cues of safety, then guess what? Your nervous system learned to stay on and to constantly be scanning for tone changes, delays, subtle shifts, emotional withdrawal, anything that could signal loss. How many of you listen to this? You're like, yep. And this is also understood as someone who is a highly sensitive person, HSP. I know that a lot of you listening fall in this category, right? And if you have anxious attachment, you are most likely an HSP, and you can feel like you are in constant surveillance mode. You can feel like you're the person that has ESP, if you will. You can read people's brains. You're so attuned to your environment and everybody else in your environment, right? And what they're feeling. And there's a lot of actually predicting, right? You're predicting constantly. And your sympathetic nervous system is dominant. So you're not going into parasympathetic. You're stuck in your sympathetic nervous system being activated. So you're living in fight, which with anxious attachment, fight is looking like pursuing closeness. I want to be close to you. I'm pursuing reassurance to know that I'm not being abandoned. And then you're also stuck in flight. And flight can look like the analyzing, spiraling, um, over communicating, right? Pulling away. But here's what happens is this is showing up inside of your brain and your body, and you're getting stuck here with so much emotional dysregulation that it just becomes your norm, and you're living in this state of panic and fear, and you're probably having trouble sleeping, and there's probably a lot of outsourcing of emotional regulation, either to people in your life, could be substances, can be a lot of distraction. It doesn't feel very comfortable to sit with your emotions. So, you could be experiencing things like shopping addiction or Netflix addiction, or like I said, substance addiction. Living inside of your emotional self is scary, right? And a lot of times when we're here, it's this sort of thing where we go, I just have to keep trying to meet the need. I need the next connection, and I'm going to do everything I can to avoid sitting with, why is this so heavy, right? There's a huge amount of avoidance, and I think you just get stuck in this loop. And I want to talk about this loop, okay? It's that we're getting into the biology of anxious attachment. Are you ready? This is creating this addictive cycle. It's a cortisol and a dopamine loop. So here's what happens when you're feeling like the connection is uncertain. Let's just go through an example. You went on this date, it went really, really well. They were cute. They even paid for dinner. You didn't have to have an awkward conversation about, are we splitting the bill? You went on this great date. And then they say, I can't wait to see you again. And it's been 2 days and you haven't heard from them. And then, oh my gosh, all of a sudden it's 3 days and the connection feels uncertain. There's uncertainty. You don't know where it's going. And because of the anxious attachment and the hypervigilance, when you were getting signals that, oh, this could be somebody who's emotionally available, you overinvested. So no relationship pacing, right? We'll talk about that more, but no relationship pacing. So you're already emotionally overinvested. Now you're getting signals of uncertainty from this person. What happens? Cortisol shoots up, your cortisol spikes. Now you're in this heightened state and you're seeking reassurance. You're seeking the reassurance to help the cortisol return to normal levels, to get some relief. It's almost like you have out of body experiences. Ask me how I know. You know, I should not be triple texting this person. I should not be calling, multiple times, or I should not be even reaching out throughout the day constantly. I'm at work, but I'm thinking about them. So I just want to reach out all the time, even though I know it's too early and I shouldn't be doing it. And who am I? And I know I should be the cool girl, right? You know it logically, but your body can't help it. Your body is seeking the dopamine relief, right? And then what happens when you don't get it, right? This is where you can get into this intermittent reinforcement, okay? Because sometimes you get it and sometimes you don't, and this becomes addictive. Just like when you're gambling, I talk about this a lot. If you're gambling and oh my gosh, sometimes you hit the jackpot, and when you have anxious attachment, that person who texts you back right away, they tell you you're amazing, they do all the right things. It feels like winning the lottery, right? You hit the jackpot. And then when you don't get that same response, you're crashing out and cortisol is through the roof. We have the research to back this up that these types of relationship dynamics, this is mimicking addiction. Okay. And I just want you to like pause for a second and think about this. Why would you beat yourself up over something that is so biological? This is not something that you're choosing to do. This is your body's attachment system, your brain, your nervous system, your attachment style, all working together to create this biological experience that's causing you harm. Can you just give yourself some compassion about this and acknowledge, okay, I am not choosing this. This is the product of my past relational experiences. It's the product of my brain, my body, my attachment system, and my nervous system, right? And I just want you to like give yourself some love there, because I don't know about you, but when I was in unhealthy relationships, I was beating myself up so much. I was comparing myself to little secure Sally who never had any relational trauma, and she's so happy. And she just had the perfect wedding and posted all the photos on Instagram, and she's probably going to go off and have perfect children. And she looks perfect and she looks happy. And why can't I be like that? That's what I was doing. I was comparing myself to that person. And I was like, oh, just get it together. Be the cool girl. Be the girl that has the normal relationships. I just wanted to be normal for once. I had all this chaotic stuff happening in my love life. It got to the point where I couldn't tell my friends about it. I didn't dare tell my family, right? I knew I was going to be judged. So here I was living with these like movie level romance dramas occurring in my life, and I couldn't tell a single soul about it because I was ashamed. I was judging myself so hard. I knew that other people would judge me. And I just want you to know, like, if you're doing that, can you just pause and just acknowledge, hey, this is what my brain and body learn to do in relationships. The sooner I acknowledge it and have compassion for it, the sooner I can change it. That's what I want you to realize. Okay. So remember this, that your body remembers emotionally unpredictable environments. So let's just say you have anxious attachment, but you find yourself with someone who is emotionally available, who is securely attached, who shows up even with new inputs in your environment, new environmental triggers, right? Of somebody who's actually showing up and doing what they say they're going to do. Your body's probably still going to be stuck in fight or flight mode. I work with a lot of people where they go, even the good, if they're really honest by the time they see me, they usually are very honest because they're acknowledging they need to do the work. They're saying, like, even the good guys, I couldn't allow myself to be attracted to them because the body is holding on to the past relational trauma, right? The body is saying, oh, no, 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 he seems good, but he's not. Or, oh my gosh, this isn't what we're used to. This is too stable. This is too consistent. There must be something wrong with him. He's super boring, or I hate the way he does his hair, right? Like you're finding ways to reject the thing that does not match up with your body's model for love. And I'm intentionally saying body there because once again, your logical brain is like, yeah, send me the guy who's emotionally available. Send me the person that's going to do what they say they're going to do, that's ready for love, that's ready for marriage, that wants to have the kids, right? You're intellectually, you're saying that, but your body is not. Okay. So I want to talk about the roots. Let's get into the roots of anxious attachment. Where does this come from? Once again, we said this, you did not wake up and choose this pattern. This was formed based on early relational experiences. And I got to say this, for some of you, it wasn't even your caregivers. It was actually early romantic relationships. That gets overlooked. It's significant relationships. If you're lucky like me, and I say that sarcastically, okay, I don't wish this on anyone, you had early relational trauma in both from your caregivers and also from early romantic relationships. First boyfriend I ever had was cheating on me the entire time and decided to give a promise ring to me and the other girl around the same time and didn't really think to himself that I was actually friends with this girl. And I found out, right? Like this was like my first serious relationship. That was the blueprint of, oh, wow, the person that I thought I was in love with, I was 16, but the person that I thought that I knew was not someone I could trust and proposed to somebody else. Proposed is like a loose term here, gave her promise ring at the exact same time. So, not a great model for a romantic relationship, right? And then, of course, I had all kinds of childhood trauma. So, I just have to throw it out there because some of you are going, well, hey, I had great parents. I don't, I had an amazing childhood. It's not always your childhood. Some of you, it could even be due to friendships, like a really close friend where you have relational trauma there can also impact your attachment style. It's any significant relationship where there's relational trauma. If your brain went, oh, I'm going to use this information and this data. And remember, we're wired for survival. The brain is going to be highly, highly selective about what it stores to form models for relationships. And it's going to pick the things that it thinks are going to help you survive, right? It's going to zone in on those relational trauma pieces because it believes, ooh, that's what we really need to remember in order to stay safe. Okay. So, of course, it's going to remember the betrayals, the time you got stabbed in the back in sixth grade by your best friend. It's going to remember the trauma and hold on to that the most. So, We need to talk about this though. As I said, this happened from your environment. It happened from significant relationships. Let's just go all the way back to caregiving. So let's say one of the things that can lead to anxious attachment, we need to go over this, inconsistent caregiving. Maybe sometimes your caregiver was present and warm. Maybe sometimes they were very distracted. Maybe sometimes your caregiver was very, very overwhelmed and withdrawn. Maybe other times they were overly involved and overly emotional. Here's what your little brain learned. And I want you to just imagine yourself, go back to age 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever age you can kind of see yourself as a little person. And just remember at that age, you learned, okay, love is unpredictable. I have to monitor it closely. I have to monitor it closely. Anxious attachment, you learned, I don't know what I'm going to get. I got to stay on my toes. I need to be hyper vigilant so that I can try to get my needs met in whatever way. And with anxious attachment, that's a lot of, sort of, I'll do anything I have to do to not be abandoned, right? But you learned love is not predictable. I have to stay hyper vigilant. Other things that happened in these relational trauma experiences, emotional mirroring was unreliable. So, a lot of times with anxious attachment, this can mean that your feelings were chronically invalidated. This is what I see the most with anxious attachment. Your emotions were chronically invalidated, meaning you would go to a caregiver, you would say how you felt, and they would say either you're too much, you're overreacting, or tell you why you're wrong and tell you that you should feel something else. That's my favorite one. I'm like, God, emotions are valid, right? Like we don't get to tell someone that what they're feeling is not correct. Emotions just are. They just are. So you learned that if I want connection, if I want to be accepted by my caregiver, which by the way, as a child, you need that for survival. You can't just say at age 6, I'm packing up my things and getting out of here, right? You need your caregiver's love for survival, right? So you learned, okay, if I want connection from my caregiver, I have to manage my emotions perfectly. I need you guys to hear that. If I want connection from my caregiver, which by the way equaled survival, I have to manage my emotions carefully. There are a lot of you listening to this show that are still walking around that way. And it actually makes me sad. I'm getting kind of emotional thinking about this. There's a lot of you that are still disconnected from your emotions. You are still over functioning for all the people in your life. You're still stuck in fight or flight mode and you're hyper vigilant and you're missing out. You're missing out on the peace of a calm, regulated nervous system. You're missing out on the joys of actually feeling your feelings and being able to express them and have them be validated and heard and understood by emotionally available people. You're missing out on so much if this is where you're stuck, right? You don't have to manage your emotions perfectly. Your emotions get to be what they are. The problem is with anxious attachment, when you've been cut off from feeling them for so long, it's like the closet in your house that you stuffed everything into that you didn't want to deal with. So then when you even open the closet door a little bit, you freak out and you go, oh my God, I cannot feel these feelings. This is going to be like a tsunami. It's going to take me out. You don't trust yourself to actually feel your feelings with anxious attachment because you think you've been told your whole life it's too much. You shut yourself completely off with it and you just think it's going to take you out. You won't be able to handle it. But this is part of the healing, right? Is we do have to heal our ability to tune into our emotions, to process them ourselves, to express them, and to realize that just because they were invalidated in my early relationships, that's not the kind of partner and people that I should seek out in my life. There are people that will validate your emotions, make space for them, be curious about them, and even celebrate them. And until we heal this at the root, you're going to keep seeking out people that just invalidate your experience. Okay. All right. What are the other roots? These things make me sad. Okay. The other roots are conditional love. So maybe you only felt loved when you performed. You had to be a certain way in order to be loved. You felt like you were ignored when you were struggling, if you were getting bad grades or not fitting in with people. And then you brought it up to your parents and they were like, oh, just try harder. Just, well, what did you do wrong? That's the worst, right? When you're coming with something vulnerable, you're like, I don't have friends. This person's bullying me. And then your parents are like, well, what did you do to deserve it? Instead of actually being on your side, right? Like maybe you just felt like, ugh, I have to be a certain way in order to be loved. And that means I have to be easy. I have to not have big emotions or anything I'm struggling with, right? And for a lot of people, they learn, oh, I'm easy to love when I'm giving to other people. And this is some of the roots of over giving. You start giving to others, right? Um, I got to talk about this. This is another possible root of anxious attachment. Absorbing caregiver anxiety. If your caregivers were anxious, chaotic, or enmeshed with you, and for those of you who don't know what that means, it's like codependent, if they were merged with you, then you absorbed their emotional climate. There are some of you that your attachment style mirrors your caregiver, and you know it. Just think about how you relate to things. And you're like, oh, I don't want to be like my parent. I always told myself I would never be like my mother. And then here I am showing up this way. It's because you are merged. You absorbed their way of being, right? All right. Another thing that happens with anxious attachment is the parentified child, right? You were given emotional responsibility. You grew up soothing adults, anticipating moods, and managing chaos. And maybe now in your relationships, you find yourself managing your partner's emotions to feel safe, right? It's just what you do. You're not managing yours. You're not even tuned into how you're feeling. You're managing the emotions of people around you because you were a parentified child. You were not able to be a child. I've been thinking about this one lately. It's 30 years now since I lost my mom. It's early December is the anniversary. And I was thinking about that 6-year-old girl version of me and the adults around me, my dad, my aunts, the people around me. And I just remember how upset everyone was. And I didn't really know what was going on, right? For some of you who don't know, this is like complicated loss for me because my mom had a traumatic brain injury when I was 6. And then she was in a vegetative state until I was 25. And she passed away when I was 25, but I always think of the grief and actually losing her was when I was 6 years old. And I just remember, and it was after Thanksgiving, but before Christmas, and it's the holidays. And I just remember the adults in my life crying, not able to function, feeling very, very upset, being absent, not going to school. I just remember like my whole entire world fell apart and I just felt like a burden. I'd never felt that way before, but it's funny how, I mean, it's not funny. This is neuroscience. Like the older I get and the more that I heal, I can actually access these memories that in the past were just completely blacked out. and it's painful, and I realize, oh, I now have capacity and emotional availability, and I'm in tune with my emotions enough to actually process these things. So it's just been coming up for me more this year, and I think it's, 30 years since that happened. But I'm realizing I was anticipating moods. I was managing chaos. I was trying to be as agreeable and small as possible because I saw the adults in my life crumbling as they would. I saw everything falling around me, and I just wanted to be easy to be around. Um, yeah, and I think some of you may relate to that, and you may have other experiences. Maybe it was not a major event, but it was things that happened over time. Maybe you had a parent with a drinking problem or with mental health issues, or, insert whatever would have caused your parent not to be there. But I want you to like really honestly ask yourself, who did I feel like I had to be to get the adults around me to be okay with me and to take care of me and to love me, right? A lot of times it's not things that are directly said. And it's not like even any adults in my life wanted me to feel that way. It was just the result of what happened, right? It was just a result of me being in tune to my environment. So these are the things when it comes to the roots of anxious attachment: inconsistent caregiving, emotional mirroring is unreliable, conditional love, absorbing caregiver anxiety if your caregiver shows up with anxious attachment, and then the parentified child. And I know a lot of you relate to that. I hope it's okay that I was vulnerable with you all reflecting on that. Um, I want to move on. Cultural lens. Let's talk about the cultural lens of anxious attachment. This is big, okay? Our culture massively mislabels people with anxious attachment. If you have anxious attachment in our culture, you're called clingy, needy, high maintenance, and dramatic. So this is so damaging because you hear those and it's so negative. Oh, you don't want to be clingy. And then we have all this stuff out there about, oh, a boyfriend is embarrassing. Like there's this huge swing towards avoidant attachment, and even more and more women showing up with avoidant attachment style. So I think us, the poor anxiously attached people out there, you're kind of like, oh, this is so not cool, right? I'm being labeled as clingy, needy, high maintenance. And I need you to understand this. Those are just labels. Those are just people that don't understand what's happening on a nervous system level. Clinically, you are in a trauma response. This is a valid trauma response because of your past relational trauma. Okay. And then what else is going on? So we have the labels. The other thing that's happening culturally, here's the truth. And some of you are gonna be like, finally, somebody said this. Here's the truth. Modern dating makes anxious attachment worse because dating apps are replicating and intensifying inconsistent connection, intermittent reinforcement. So the ghosting, the hot and cold behavior, the, ooh, I got a message, but then I don't get one for a week. This is the dopamine reward cycle is being intensified. All right. And this is the perfect storm for anxiously attached people to spiral. So I can understand when you tell me you hate the dating apps. If you have anxious attachment, I know one of the reasons you hate the dating apps is because the way that dating apps are set up, they put your nervous system into even more of a fight or flight mode, right? They intensify everything that your body's already doing and make it 10 times worse. I understand this. Also, what's going on culturally? So, this is interesting, all right? Gender roles have been evolving, but there's still this we're essentially still socialized that women get more of the, I would say, duty to maintain emotional connections. And there's still, I think, I mean, even it's just being talked about more openly. But I know that there's still this sort of pressure that the woman is to lead the healing, is to sort of set the tone for the emotional health of the relationship. That still seems to fall on the woman. Okay. And, for my LGBTQ family, there's still norms, right? I think even within same-sex relationships about, hey, there's like one partner that gets to set the tone for the emotional labor. And I think hopefully, I think things are changing where we're realizing that it can't just be on one person, right? In truly emotionally available, secure relationships, the emotional health of the relationship is shared. It is a shared labor. It requires both people, right? So, but with anxious attachment, if you're being put in that role and you're feeling like I'm the one that has to keep this going, I don't know how many of you ever felt this. You're like, well, if I stopped giving a shit about this relationship would just end and it would be over, right? There's a lot of you that have felt that way. I get it. And you're not wrong, right? Like culturally, there's still sometimes this backwards old belief of like one person can do more of the work to maintain the relationship. And that's just simply not fair. Okay. What else is going on? Oh my goodness. We are glorifying avoidance culturally, and this makes anxious attachment worse. We are praising the person that can play it cool, praising the person that doesn't need a partner, praising the person that's going after their career and their goals and their Pilates and skincare and hair routine and looking quote unquote perfect. I think social media makes this so much worse, right? Praising the person that's catching flights, not feelings. There's a lot of putting avoidant attachment tendencies on a pedestal. And even within your friend groups, I'd be curious, like, I'm pretty sure that the person with anxious attachment, if you're in the cool girl friend group, or even just like the group of friends that, they're not prioritizing relationships, I think you can kind of feel alone, right? And what that does is it makes people with anxious attachment feel like, ugh, my emotional openness, the way that I feel all the things, the desire that I have to have a relationship, to be close to someone, to build a family, to want marriage and kids, if that's you, right? Like you can sort of feel like, ugh, that's just not cool. It's like my emotional openness and the way that I crave intimacy makes me unlovable. There can be that message. So I really hope that culturally we can get some middle ground on this, right? And then also, okay, here's my last cultural context that intensifies anxious attachment. And you guys know this. You know this. If you watch any media, if you ever watch the Hallmark Channel or any little Netflix romance special, the rom-coms, in our culture, when people have the whirlwind, all in romance, oh my gosh, you're my forever person, and I just met you, this is glorified as romantic. There is still culturally this belief that instant intensity is real love, that butterflies equals passion, and that uncertainty, oh my gosh, you're moving to Paris in 2 months, but we still love each other. So let's just try to make this work and maybe I'll move with you. I'm just throwing it out there, right? But that uncertainty equals excitement and a good story. And, of course, I think we have to have some openness. I love there's all the do it for the plot people say. It's like, yeah, have some openness, have some flexibility. But I do think culturally, we still romanticize the impossible love connection, the I just met you and it was love at first sight. And it's just so, so rare that that type of connection could actually grow into something securely attached. Now, are there exceptions? Absolutely. It's just incredibly rare, y'all. Okay. And don't think you're the exception because I know how cute it would be for you to go to a bookstore, some snowy, is this a romance movie? Am I saying one? I'm just picturing it's like a snowy winter night. You're going to the bookstore, you're all, cute, but you're alone and you're crying on the holidays. And then you go in there and all of a sudden you look up and there's this super hot guy and you're both reaching for the same book and then you lock eyes and boom, that's it. That's the love of your life, right? I know how tempting that would be. By the way, if I was writing a romance novel, it would totally be something like that. I'm such a book nerd. I like that. I like that version. But I just need you to know it's so rare for that kind of relationship beginning to actually become something securely attached. Now, does it occasionally? Very, very rarely. So, we've talked so much about attachment styles today in terms of you really understanding anxious attachment on a deep level. I hope this is giving you like a deep exhale. I hope this is giving you so much understanding for yourself and where you're at. And I want you to know that once again, you don't have to live your life this way. You deserve to heal. If you've listened to this episode and you've gotten this far, I want to invite you to join us inside of the Empowered, Secure, Loved program. We have very limited spots. I'm talking like 1 to 2 spots left. And some of you may have heard this, but this is your last opportunity. We're headed into that territory. December will be the final month that I'm taking applications for this program. And right now we have an incredible Black Friday offer. So if you've been on the fence and if you are going, oh my gosh, I do not want to repeat my 2025 dating patterns in 2026, this is the time. This is the time. You deserve to feel some hope and some momentum over the holidays because I know it's so easy to be like sad and just comparing yourself to everybody else. What if you decided, hey, I'm going to actually take ownership of this? I'm going to actually heal instead of buying all this material crap that is supposed to make me feel better. I'm going to actually invest in the most important thing, me, right? I'm going to invest in me and in my relationship health. So I want to help you with that. That's my mission, is to help as many people as possible become securely attached. And if this spoke to you, just go use the link in the show notes and apply to the program. It takes 5 minutes. And I hope you like this episode. We've got 3 more of this style. We're going to dive into avoidant attachment, disorganized attachment. I'm super excited about disorganized attachment. It does not get talked about enough. And this will be a really good deep dive. And then, of course, we're going to talk about secure attachment, the style that we all want to be, that is possible for anyone willing to do the work. All right. So I'm sending you so much love. I'm wishing you and yours a really, really wonderful Thanksgiving. And if you're in Canada, I know you already had Thanksgiving. I don't know what the deal is in Australia. We've got a lot of listeners in Australia, New Zealand. Hello, hello. Do you guys have Thanksgiving at the same time as we do? I don't know. But no matter where you are in the world, thank you for being part of this community, for tuning in. I so, so appreciate each one of you. You all are the reason why I do this show. I want to help as many people as possible. So I so appreciate you. Thank you for all of you who take the time to leave a review, who send me a DM on Instagram at Dr. Morgan Coaching. Your encouragement and your gratitude, it means the world to me. And I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for being part of this community. And as always, I'm wishing you high self worth and great relationships. We'll talk to you soon.